Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Society of Ridgewood, a liberal religious community that has been here on Cottage Place for over 125 years. My name is Sally Lewis, and my pronouns are she and her, and I am your Sunday associate this morning. As Unitarian Universalists, we agree to keep each other company, supporting one another on the journey of life. We ask questions about what our lives mean, and we try to become the very best versions of ourselves. Each of us answers the big questions in our own ways. We don't force each other, but let each other think for ourselves. We do share a belief in love that can heal and transform. A belief in the interconnection among all of us, as well as the interdependence. We also believe in the beauty of human diversity, and all of us are welcome here, no matter our age, our ability, our race, our gender, our sexual orientation, economic status, theology, or education. If you want to know more about this congregation, who we are and what we do, please make sure you fill out the green sheet in the foyer. Or fill out the form that will be dropped into the chat box on Zoom. There will be a coffee hour after the service today for snacks and fellowship. Please stay and join us. Folks on Zoom, you will have your own opportunity to chat, so please don't drop off. As we begin, please take a minute to silence your electronic devices if you are here in Anderson, so that we can be truly present with one another. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning. Our opening hymn is number 1000, Morning Has Come, and the words should be on the screen.
You all often have some very wonderful singers present with you on Sunday morning. We are a little more fearful and tentative this morning, I hear, and that's okay. So we will sing our other hymns loud and proud and with no fear of being off key. We're just going to go for it. I invite you now in this time of centering just to take a deep breath. We've had the gift of singing together, of breathing together, of our hearts beating in sync. Let's continue that. We breathe into this space, giving thanks that we woke up again this morning. It is amazing how we keep waking up. It's worthy of note and celebration, even if the day before us, after we've woken up, has some heavy stuff in it, has some challenges in it, has some things in it that we are not excited or happy about. We have the opportunity to face those and to seek support and care and love from other human beings, and to extend care and support and love to other human beings who may be having a hard day after the delight of waking up. As we prepare to enter our service commemorating Memorial Day and honoring lives of service, I invite you to set aside for a time, if you can, your cares and your worries and your list of things to do, all the stuff that's been running through your mind already today and on your walk or drive or your bike ride here. If you choose to, you can pick up all of those woes and worries and wonderings and what have yous on your way out at the end. But for now, I invite you to be nowhere but here with each other, open to the presence of those gathered around you, and in this experience of music, and silence and spoken word. We give thanks for this opportunity to center down at least once a week. We come to this time and this place to rediscover the wondrous gift of the free religious community, to renew our faith in the holiness, goodness, and beauty of life, to reaffirm the way of the open mind and the full heart, to rekindle the flame of memory and hope, and to reclaim the vision of an earth made fair with all her people one.
Please join us in the words for the lighting of the chalice. We light this chalice, the hope of truth, the warmth of love, and the energy of action as we gather together in the circle of community.
A few days ago, my son and I had the privilege of seeing the Broadway musical Hamilton, and I will admit how surprised I was at how moved I was by the production, by the performance, by the communication of history in such a marvelous living way. Leaving the theater and heading uptown on the west side, we found ourselves in the mix of all these uniformed Navy personnel, and I realized it was Fleet Week. The young sailors and my son, I'm going to lose it completely up here today, we're about the same age. If you're going to cry too, we do have tissues. We did not have tissues on Bridging Sunday, and we should have, but now I have stocked the room with tissues. So these kids in these uniforms, kids are my son's age, milling around. So these events, particularly my reflections upon Hamilton, have been woven into my thinking about Memorial Day this year. I've been reflecting upon the founding of our nation by remarkable and yet oh so human and oh so deeply flawed men of means and extraordinary ambition, and certainly scores of unrecognized others too, and also of the generations of young people led by mature people into wars to protect, defend, and further the principles and aims of our nation, our imperfect, still aspiring, still struggling for self-actualization of our most lofty ideals nation, our imperfect, screwed up, but marvelous nation that has such potential. And I think of those in every generation who've died for this nation. I've seen that video that I shared with you many times. And I'll be doggone if not every single time it makes me cry. I even barely looked at it today and it's making me cry. My heart breaks to witness the profound sorrow of the bereaved, the anguish in their faces, in the faces of parents and partners and children. My mind can't make sense of the sight of that many headstones, though I have spent decades standing in cemeteries leading services. I am overwhelmed by the number of names carved into those memorial walls, and I mourn the deaths of so many young people who died while serving in our armed forces. Every time I'm at a cemetery where the flag is presented, I am the one who is nearly dropping to their knees. When the flag is presented to the bereaved, they nearly always sob and usually crumple. It is a powerful ritual. And I think about the young people, it's generally young people, who are the ones who participate in the folding of the flag and the presentation of the flag. And I think about those young people wondering if someday someone is going to do this for their loved ones. I wonder how that feels for them. My parents came of age during World War II. And by the time I was old enough to be aware, 30 years after its end, World War II was still very quietly alive in our apartment. The war made such an indelible mark on my parents that it seeped into who they were and shaped everything about their lives, and I guess to a meaningful extent, mine too. I recall my mother showing me a photo album with pictures of the young men who wrote to her during the war. These baby-faced boys with crew cuts all looked exactly the same to me in their white t-shirts and jeans. And nearly all of them wrote the then popular phrase, "Is you is or is you ain't my baby," on the photograph. She never said if she wrote to any of them if she was anybody's baby. But through some horrible twist of fate, none of those young men of my mother's hometown returned from the war. None of the boys in the photographs survived. I've often wondered what my mother's life might have been like and what the life of her rural Tennessee community would have been like during those years of mourning, and what it would have been like had some of those boys returned home and been able to grow into their adulthood and into the fullness of life. Would they have come back intact enough? How might things have unfolded differently? How might they have unfolded differently if my mother had allowed me to go to military school when I asked when I was 12? How might they have unfolded differently if my child had wanted to pursue a military career instead of going to SUNY Binghamton? He may yet, who knows? I don't think so, but it could happen. All of the possibilities. At this time of year, every year, I find meaning and fresh meaning in the words of a colleague in ministry, Ellen Cooper Davis. I share with you some of her words, and it's fairly adapted now. They say there are no atheists in a foxhole. I wouldn't know. I have never been in a foxhole. I have never been anywhere near the front lines. I have never had to hold a weapon in my hands with a plan to use it against a foe. A foe. Are they really my foe? I've never had to leave anything behind for months or years at a time. I've never had to do any of these things because there are others who do them on my behalf. The military and war are challenging subjects to deal with, and rightfully so. Who would we be if these topics were simple? People will disagree on the scope and size of the military, on policies of war making, and whether we should be engaged in any military action at all, or for how long, or why. Many wise people will argue many sides. And as we argue, we may wish fervently for peace in our world and an end to violence between nations, religions, cultures, neighbors. We may wish for a deep, soul-searching, honest conversation about how and why violence erupts and what else might be possible between us human beings. But these are wishes. And the reality in this world of human beings is something else altogether. Since 1868, Memorial Day has been set aside apart from all others to remember, to honor, and to offer gratitude to the individuals who have served in the United States military and who have had their lives cut short during times of combat and war. For many, though, Memorial Day has become little more than a day when offices are closed, a long weekend for getaways, sales in every store you can imagine, and barbecues, and tons of traffic. Many of us have lost touch with the original and solemn meaning of Memorial Day, and it is too often confused with Veterans Day. Now, in those years when our armed forces have not been deployed in combat, when we've not been reading daily of casualties, then maybe it's a stretch to recall the service people who over the course of our nation's history have given their lives in service to our nation. Nameless, faceless folks who are lost to time mostly. In those years, perhaps we felt removed from the deeper meaning of Memorial Day. But these days, as we have been reeling from the effects of military conflict and violence around the world, and less than peaceful protests around the country and elsewhere, as we see a frightening rise in anti-Semitism and a deeply disturbing challenges to personal freedoms and the democratic process, as we see a breakdown in civility and a rise in censorship of books in schools and a diminishing use of reason, an inability to embrace and celebrate diversity. Today and tomorrow, let us reflect upon and honor those who, since the Revolutionary War, gave their lives in service to a nation that, for all of its blemishes, and they are big, for all of our blemishes and our faltering steps, we have aspired to a bold vision. Let us honor those who served by actualizing the promise that we are equal to one another, that each person matters, that each has a voice and a vote, that we can disagree civilly with one another and still be part of this great experiment, this imperfect pursuit of life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. On Memorial Day, let us recommit ourselves to making sure that the deaths of those who fought for this country were not for naught. The words of Archibald MacLeish. The young dead soldiers do not speak. Nevertheless, they are heard in still houses. Who has not heard them? They have a silence that speaks for them at night when the clock counts. They say, "We were young. We have died. Remember us." They say, "We have done what we could, but until it is finished, it is not done." They say, "We've given our lives, but until it is finished, no one can know what our lives gave." They say, "Our deaths are not ours. They are yours. They will mean what you make them." They say, "Whether our lives and our deaths were for peace and a new hope or for nothing, we cannot say. It is you who must say this." They say, "We leave you our deaths. Give them meaning." We were young, they say. We have died. Remember us. I invite you into a time of prayer and meditation, to breathe in the music you've just heard, to let it stay with you. In this quiet moment, we seek to grow in our awareness of the Spirit which courses through us and through all living things, through the sounds of the piano. We invite the Spirit of life, that which gives us life and gives us a glimpse of the eternal, to find a home in our hearts and to guide our words and deeds. On this Sunday, when we observe Memorial Day, we are surrounded by a cloud of witnesses. We recall the fallen soldiers of our history. We hold in mind the names of those known to us who've died in service to our nation, and countless others whose names and faces are lost to time. We turn our hearts to the military personnel of the present era, those who've died in the past year, those whose families are newly bereaved, those whose loved ones are observing Memorial Day with a newfound sense of urgency and sorrow. Whatever we think about military service, let us hold those families in tender sympathy. We who have not served in the armed forces cannot fully imagine the experience of military action, but we can comprehend the toll that it takes on the human heart. And so today we pray for the individuals who are actively serving in our nation's armed forces. Somehow, may they be protected from all that might wound their bodies, minds, and spirits when their service is complete. May they have all that they need to be made whole. On this day, as we remember our service members, we also remember those whom we've loved, who are gone from the life we know and understand, who did not serve in the military. Memorial Day is also a day for remembering our loved ones, our late loved ones. Let us hold the faces of our loved ones in our mind's eye. Let us call to our mind their names. With affection, we give thanks for the gifts they gave to us through the strength of their character, their depth of their love, the fullness of their living, and their special way of being. In the holy quiet of this hour, those folks surround us and they live with us in blessed memory. So may it be, and amen. We kindle a flame for those who have served in our nation's military, who've died in service to our nation. and we light a candle for their loved ones. While some of us gathered here today may have served in the armed forces by choice or having been drafted, and some of us may have loved and worried for a dear one who served in our armed forces, personal experience in military service is not something all of us here share. We can all comprehend, however, the calling to serve in life and in this world. And I believe that a fundamental element of the spiritual search is the desire to discern how we have been created to serve something greater than ourselves, a good beyond our own narrow self-satisfaction. Many, if not most of us, hope that at the end of our days we can say with some certainty that our lives have been well spent for some worthwhile purpose, and that we have used our gifts to the best of our ability. So today, as we remember those of our military whose lives were cut short while attempting to serve this nation's founding principles, we also hold in heart and mind those who, perhaps more like us, have served without medals, without citations, those whose presence in this world we celebrate and whose dying has left a hole in the fabric of life. At this time, as we each hold in mind those whom we've loved and lost, so many folks come to my mind. I have spent 25 years performing funerals. That has been a huge part of my ministry, hundreds of them. And learning about folks I never got to meet in life. There are lots of those, folks who I've only come to know after they've died. But there is one person who's been on my mind, I think because of the events of the world in recent days. I have been much reminded of my late parents and their experiences as young adults and their thoughts and conversations about the experience of World War II. So there's this one person who keeps popping into my mind. I won't tell you his last name because that seems kind of unfair to sort of out him that way. But his name was Richard. His first name was Richard. And I met Richard when I was candidating at Shelter Rock in 2001. So I met Richard in October of 2001. And his wife had recently died. He shared that with me. He was in his 80s, a very handsome 80-something, I gotta say, and piercing blue eyes, like eyes, when you see eyes like this, you say like, wow, like you can't help but say, wow. Richard had piercing blue eyes. I met him in the back of the sanctuary. He grabbed my hand and wanted to tell me about his wife, whose name was Charlotte. And he did. And we spent some time together over the years of my ministry at Shelter Rock. And I came to know a good bit about Richard. And there's an awful lot, I will confess, that has been lost to time in my mind. But Richard and Charlotte met during World War II in Europe. They were German and Jewish. And Richard was taken to a concentration camp as a young man. And Richard managed to escape. And on his way to freedom, to safety, Richard happened to pass by, and this is all true, another concentration camp, where through the fence he saw a young woman who he thought was just too beautiful to behold. And so Richard came back again and again and again to the fence to try to meet the girl. Richard broke in to the concentration camp to meet the girl and broke them out of the concentration camp to take the girl with him to freedom. Richard and Charlotte had quite a courtship, would you not say? They made their way to Queens eventually, the promised land. and to a Unitarian Universalist congregation that no longer exists. And they had a long, rich life together and raised many children. But Richard felt his calling to serve the world was to help others find the kind of sustaining love that dragged him into a concentration camp to bring this woman out. The transformative power of love, of being known, of finding your other, of cultivating a relationship that strengthens both of you, that propels you into life, to support you through whatever may come. So Richard and his wife spent decades, every week meeting with young married couples, straight couples, gay couples, male, female, non-binary, they didn't care. They wanted to help couples cultivate their relationship, to have relationships of depth and meaning and ever-growing love for one another. When I performed Richard's funeral, and he was in his 90s by that point, when I performed Richard's funeral, the sanctuary was packed, not with family, but with all of these couples of different ages who credited their marital success to Richard and Charlotte, and then Richard alone when Charlotte was gone. Hundreds of people thanked him for helping them learn how to be a better person and partner in this world. What a gift. What a calling. I can't remember what Richard did for a living. I can't remember all of the details of his fascinating and true story, but I remember all of those people showing up at his funeral to say, this person made a difference in my life because of their calling to serve the world. This world is full of dutiful servants, and they are us. What we do in this world matters so much. So today, as we remember those who served in our military, let us remember all the regular folks who in the routines of their living have served our common life and the world we share, who've made it a better place. Let's celebrate their unique presence in this world. May it continue to endure and inspire us and others. And may we do likewise. While you remain standing, would you please join in our chalice extinguishing words, which will be here on our screen. We extinguish the flame, but may the hope of truth, the warmth of love, and the energy of action burn bright in our hearts until we are together.